First of all, you were in the news recently for doing some jail time. Now, there's an interesting story behind this. So can you kind of explain what led up to you actually doing the jail time and what you actually experienced once you got to jail?
Well, actually, it's one of those things that you couldn't get away from. It's something you had to do if you were a man. It's a juvenile court system here that the U.S. Justice Department calls racist, bigoted, biased, prejudiced, unfair, and unjust, and the worst they've ever seen. And it's been going on for years, and it was one of those things where you either have no backbone, and you crawl into the background, or you make a stand and you have to speak out. And that's basically what I did. The first time I ever appeared in that particular court was more than 40 years ago, and the judge at the time called me the N-word. He thought I was on his docket and not a lawyer.
Okay, hold on. This is actually interesting. So you appeared in this courtroom 4 years ago for
40.
what exactly?
40.
40 years ago.
40 years ago, the first time I appeared in the juvenile court of Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee, the judge called me the N-word. It really got nasty in there at that point in time. He thought I was on his docket and not a lawyer.
Okay, so what exactly did he say, and what led to him actually saying that?
What, 40 years ago? Just his bigoted, racist way of doing things. He's dead now. He died in 2008 after staying on a bench until 2006. What happened is I had a woman that I agreed to represent pro bono, that is, without charging her anything, because she appealed to my good graces and needed help. She was being accused of being the mother of somebody's daughter, and she had never had a daughter. So it had drug on for 8 years, and somebody needed to speak up for her, and the magistrate, or the lawyer that was hired by the juvenile court to hear things, decided he didn't have time. So basically, that wasn't going to stay as it was. Yeah, I just did what I had to do. It's like King demonstrated, Abernathy, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown. You know, we have a long series of moments in this country's history where somebody had to speak out, got in trouble for it, got arrested for it. In the end, your objection to the wrong prevailed and things got corrected, maybe.
Right. Now, you represented her pro bono in this case.
Yes, and I got the matter dismissed. They had issued a warrant with nobody having sworn to anything. Nobody signed anything. There was a rubber stamp. It should have been dismissed years ago. It had been dismissed the first time she was down there, but they picked it back up, so enough's enough. So that's just what I've been about over the years. Now, I'll say this is interesting. I think a thing has developed around the whole country over the last few years, and I think we're going retro. It looks like there's been progress, but there's not. We're slipping back. And we have institutions that have become insulated, isolated, and protected from review. We've got privatization, and that's very rampant in juvenile courts, where you make money off of the handling of juveniles and family affairs, child support matters, custody matters, paternity, visitation, that kind of thing, and it's gotten insidious. You've got this thing called Correctional Corporation of America that's begun to take over the jails, penitentiaries, and penal systems for a large number of states, and their interest is making money for their stockholders and not doing anything about ensuring justice or the reduction of criminal activity. It's gotten hooked up these days with the fact that the United States, alone in the Western world, has not made any arrangements to retrain its ordinary workers who have been displaced by industrial technology and computerization. And the justice system, the juvenile system, has morphed into a set of devices that are used to control surplus labor. In other words, remove people from the job market, keep them from being employable, and open up opportunities for smart entrepreneurs to make a lot of money off of housing them in penal systems. So it's not very good.
I want to get into all this, but I just want to set up the timeline of actually what happened in terms of your situation. So you represented this woman pro bono. You came into the court, and I guess something actually happened between you and the judge in the courtroom?
There's no judge in the courtroom. There is a person named Harold Horne that got hired a few months out of law school back in the 80s because his uncle and the judge at the time were friends, and that's all he's done is sit down there and make rulings. The reason he even came into being is because the judge at the time dropped out of the 8th grade, and the state Supreme Court said he was literally too ignorant and educationally infirm to preside as a judge. So he collected the paycheck, and the taxpayers had to pay for 5 to 7 referees and special judges to do what he was elected to do but was not allowed to do. So this person started off as a referee. The title got changed to magistrate, but in essence he's just a lawyer who was never elected but was appointed by what is in effect a minor judge on the scale of things to have a lot to do with the lives of other people. Nobody has anything to say about him except this one judge. Every other referee in the county or magistrate in the county except this one has to be unanimously approved by every judge in the county. And in this case, one person gets to pick 7 referees or 5 referees or magistrates, depending upon what they're called, and they're just lawyers who are employed. They are exercising the power of judges, but unlike judges, they don't get elected and they're not accountable to anyone.
Okay. Now, what actually happened in the courtroom between you and this magistrate?
Well, I attempted to build my record for appeal, and he was cutting me off, and in 40 years, that's the first time that's ever happened. And he and I have not gotten along with each other for years and years, from the point he got out of law school, I guess, back in the 80s up until now. So I was appalled by what I saw. I had actually closed the court down myself when I was a judge some 25 years ago and made some changes, ordered them, and here they are. They just completely forgot about it, so they had gone back to the bad way. But see, this just, it's the kind of thing lawyers used to do all the time. It's gotten rare because we've got too many lawyers, and too many of them are not about practicing a profession. They are about trying to conduct a business, and they want money rather than taking advantage of their training to make it better for the people. So I'm committed to being called upon to make it better for people, and that's what I did. They wound up making me do 5 days in the county jail, and I had a whole cell block to myself. And quite frankly, I think I talked with most of the correctional officers out there at one time or another, and I recruited some of them to participate in a project with me to go out into the neighborhoods and keep the kids out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there some sort of argument that ensued between you and the magistrate during the proceedings?
Well, considering that what I thought he was doing was just illustrating heightened ignorance, yes, it got intense, but on a scale of 1 through 10, based on what I've seen or been involved in over the last 40 years, it was about a 2.5. The Justice Department says they are just not used to vigorous advocacy down there, and the Justice Department faulted the lawyers for being too timid. So that's not what yours truly is. In fact, it was quite often that in front of me when I was a judge, lawyers would get a lot more intense than I was. I welcomed it if they were moving the issue along. And I said, good for you, that's what lawyers do. I never really found a lawyer in contempt in the 10 years I was on the bench, and this is the only time a lawyer has been locked up in this county in the last 50 years. Now, this character accused me of trying to start a riot in the courtroom. So that's just ridiculous. And it's the type of obfuscation that you can expect from an institution that the public has ignored but suffered under for a long time. It's autocratic and it's un-American. This particular court got sanctioned by the federal courts back in the 80s when they held that the judge down there was exercising powers that no judge in America is entitled to exercise, and held that if the allegations were proved, then the judge and anyone involved would be held personally liable to the people who were impacted. Now, that was relative to the judge. This is just, you know, you're supposed to be dealing with juvenile courts, then you get legislation passed so you can deal with paternity matters instead of the circuit or superior courts. Then you set child support instead of the circuit or superior courts. You get control of visitation. You get control of a number of things that are typically reserved for the courts that handle divorces. And there's nobody looking over your shoulder because it's a very informal institution that does not keep detailed nor accurate records about what happens. So you can see that over the years a mess builds up, and there is a problem. The Justice Department says the result of the operations are extremely racist and bigoted.
Mm-hmm. So you got sentenced to 5 days in jail.
I got 5 days in jail. I did it. I'd do it again. And that's the way of it. I doubt if any other court would have, well, let's put it this way. I doubt if any other system would have wound up where this one did.
Was this the first time you've gone to jail?
I was active back in the 60s. I was a member of the class of 1969 UCLA, and everybody from the basketball team to the football team to most of the people on campus wound up getting arrested or taken down because we were protesting things like war, lack of justice for black folk, Hispanic folk, Native American folk, Asian folk, gays, you name it. Everybody was protesting. So no, it was nothing new. I'm 68 years old, and what's going on is this to me was just sort of a hiatus in what was going on with civil rights and actualization through militancy of people's rights. Yes, we got taken down all the time.
There was a mutual friend in Dallas who had worked with Lonzo in some capacity as a DJ. And when the Boys in the Hood record started to get some action, this dude brought those guys to Dallas.
I ain't blow up because my shit look real and authentic. Not no foolery. Motherfuckers using CO2 guns and shit, boy. Nah, man. Nah. No. Bro, it ain't like that.